Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club podcast, where every month we deep dive into a different aspect of cinema with directors, actors, genres, or franchises. It doesn't matter because it's always fun at the Film Club. I'm Dean.
I'm Boo.
And this month we're talking about foreign films, and this week we're talking about
The Grand Illusion.
Le Grand Illusion by Jean Renoir from 1937. This is one of the quintessential French masterpieces, at least one of the French masterpieces pre the French New Wave of the 1960s.
And it just so happens to land the day before Bastille Day. I don't know how you managed to do this.
Because I'm thorough and lucky.
Mostly lucky, because you had no idea until I mentioned it to you before we started recording.
Yes, I also don't know what Bastille Day actually is, but hey, happy Bastille Day.
Yes,
it's
happy
French.
Bastille Day, yes.
So we're talking about The Grand Illusion today, and what is your experience with this? Have you ever heard of it before? We'll start with that.
I think I've heard you talk about it before. Never seen it.
Any concept of what the movie was about?
No, I really try to stay in the dark about the movie.
I mean, this is also your second Jean Renoir film, right?
Is it?
Yes, we went to the theater to go see Rules of the Game.
Ooh, I did love Rules of the Game. And there is a tie-in to Rules of the Game in this movie.
There's like 4 cast member tie-ins.
Yes.
Yeah, to Rules of the Game. But, Grand Illusion, I think I saw this movie, I want to say probably about like 2 years ago. The first time I watched it, I thought it was like, man, this is overhyped and really boring. The second time I watched it, I was like, okay, there's actually a lot here, but it's still kind of boring. And now I watched it this time, and I'm like, I was captivated from pillar to post, and this movie's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I was going to be boring going into this because, sometimes you like some sleepers.
I like a slow pace with a lot of thought and or absolute trash. That is my spectrum of movie taste.
So when you were telling me that, you were so excited to do this, the kino was through the roof, I was like, oh man, he's really going to hit me with one. And no, I found it very entertaining. I actually really liked the movie.
Oh, thank God.
I don't know if I enjoyed it more than Rules of the Game. This movie didn't have dancing skeletons. Rule of the Game did, so...
It's true. And Rules of the Game is... Well, they both lean into comedy, but Rules of the Game is a lot more of a...
It's more comedic than this movie.
Yes. Grand Illusion does have comedic elements to it, but it's taking itself a little bit more seriously.
It's also comedic relief because we're going through, war.
Yes. But let's get into this. Before we talk about the actual movie, let's talk about the director, Jean Renoir.
Mm-hmm.
And we've both seen Rules of the Game. We've seen Grand Illusion. What are some things we can say are pretty consistent in his work? Looking at those two movies.
Well, definitely casting.
Yes, yeah, he carried over, like half the cast from, like at least the entire male cast from Rules of the Game carried over into this movie.
Because I believe. Is Rules of the Game before or after this movie?
I believe Rules of the Game is 39 and this is 37.
Okay.
So I guess they carry over the other way, but
It'd be like that.
I mean, like, look at it like this. The comedic elements are carrying over, even though they're serious-ish movies. Like, you would classify both of them as dramas. Rules of the Game may be a little bit more of a comedy, but it's like a romance drama. It's a love triangle.
A black comedy.
Yeah, and this is like a war film. Like it's a straight up war film where you have the French Charlie Chaplin just hamming it up.
Yeah.
Every second he's on screen.
I mean, you even have a romance in this movie.
Oh, I mean, are we already gonna get into Richthofen and Boeldieu?
No, I was actually talking about...
Elsa and Marcel.
Marcel and Elsa, yeah.
No. Their passion is not nearly that of Von Rauffenstien and Boeldieu. That romance is true kino.
Yeah. I haven't quite seen a true love like that in a long time. And I was like, wow, no wonder Dean loves this movie. It's about brotherhood.
It's just boys, it's dudes doing dude things, just having a couple bros, doing some bro jobs,
Some bro jobs, wow.
Oh, this movie is really funny.
But I love their dynamic.
The dynamics of the movie are really kind of what sells it. All the ensemble cast is perfect, and I think every member of the cast brings something to it.
I mean, I love that the Ruskies go crazy. And the French are just like, yeah, they're doing what they're doing.
Goddamn Russians is just like the Red October.
And it's just like, let's use them going batshit crazy so we can escape out of here.
I guess we should probably tell people what the movie's about.
Yeah, that would help.
Just a little bit.
A little bit.
A hair. Well, I have the back of the box, so that'll help.
It's going to be a big box. Long movie.
It's not that long. It's not even 2 hours. It's close.
It's close.
But the movie's about 2 World War I French pilots, the aristocratic Captain Boeldieu and the working-class Lieutenant Marcel. I can't believe I got those right. Let's go. They are shot down behind enemy lines by the German flying ace and the aristocratic Richtmeister von Rauffenstien. So good about that. Let's go.
Or, you may know him as the butler in Sunset Boulevard.
Yes, he is also Max.
Yes.
He is director Erich von Stroheim.
Mm-hmm.
A very famous director, and him and Jean Renoir had a little bit of a beef, but we'll get to that. But the French pilots, they are taken prisoner, and they spend the next 2 years with their fellow countrymen, putting on shows and killing time as they plot a escape. But when their escape fails, they are sent off to von Rauffenstien's fortress to be held prisoner. Now the soldiers stuck in a massive complex plot one last escape, even if it means dying in the process. And, they escape to the, countryside, and there's a whole, other movie that happens in the last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And, and then, comedy ensues. But, yeah, this is a movie that is, it is doing a lot, saying a lot about a lot of different things.
It's a lot of heavy material. We are going through the First World War in this movie.
And it's all happening on the cusp of World War II, because this is 37.
Yeah, but Renoir does it in a very lighthearted way, where it's like, these Frenchmen are, in a camp, in a war camp, but they're all, happy and they're bonded with each other. And it's like, we're going to get out of here. We're good.
Yeah, that's going to be something that's going to be weird for people watching the movie, is to cross that boundary, because don't be wrong, the war, a prisoner of war camp was probably not this, boys in a dorm room, but it's 70% there, 80% there from what I understand.
Performing shows.
Well, that was a real thing, because if you were an officer in the military, you're treated different than you're captured kind of thing, because you have a status, you have a value kind of thing in terms of bargaining. So you're treated well enough, but you're you can't leave or do anything. So the officers would kind of have a repertoire with the German soldiers who held them captive. So they would put on shows, or they would be friendly to each other. They weren't friends, but they were friendly kind of thing.
Yeah.
As friendly as, prisoner and prison keeper could be, I guess. But it is really weird when they get captured and the French guy's oh, I can't cut my steak. And the German guy's don't worry, I'll cut it for you. And they're all oh, aren't you so sweet? Oh, very strong over there. War will be over in a month.
Well, that's what was so confusing. I was like, what? It's
why are they so friendly and nice to each other?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of going into the whole theming of the movie, because the movie talks about a bunch of stuff. It talks about war, talks about race, talks about class, talks about society, politics, everything, right? That I say Grand Illusion talks about everything in humanity.
It talks about illusions.
Yes.
Because it's brought up in the dialogue.
A lot.
Yeah. I'm a little too on the nose there.
Just a hair, a hair. But I mean, that's the thing, the grand illusion of all this, right? Where, their German captors are treating them relatively well, honestly, in terms of one-on-one interaction. They're yeah, how's it going? Mr. Arthur, oh, it's fine, Mr. Perrault, it's all good. And it's this, it's all an illusion.
Yeah.
It's we are enemies in warfare, but that's just an illusion. If we were on the streets, we'd be totally fine.
Yeah.
All of this, all the war stuff, all the nationalism, all this stuff is just a huge illusion. Once we just kind of take that away and we're just people. Once
war is over, we're going to go back to being comrades. I might see you in a bar, we have dinner together, and then, we're good. We go from there.
It's really interesting, and I think it's exemplified with von Rauffenstien, played by Eric von Stroheim,
Mm-hmm.
and his relationship with Boeldieu, because
Yeah.
they're both like these aristocrats,
Mm-hmm.
well-off families, very rich.
Yeah,
They're
Boeldieu has a cousin that's like he's like a royal in Germany.
yes, it's something like that because they're both like of a echelon that just kind of doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, oh, so what do you do? It's like, oh well, I'm a professional army person, and
Mm-hmm.
I am a of this really wealthy class, and I am all this other stuff that's like at least doesn't exist in America. Usually, once you get rich, you do everything to not have to be in the military.
Yeah, and in this, it's very much, for country, for pride. And it's like, yeah, I am French, my cousin's French, and he's an attaché to, the German whatever. But it's like, it's like, I respect you because we're kind of on the same playing field. We don't want this war, but we have to stand with our countries.
And I think that's interesting how you put that is they're both basically the same guy,
Mhm.
just transposed to different like places.
Yeah.
And they have this very interesting relationship because it's
I
like
love their relationship.
it is almost romantic in
Mhm.
sections because Bouldieu is like, well, I have to escape the prison camp, and they're like, why? And he's like, because I must.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you climb a mountain? Because it's there. And von Rothstein is like, I would do the same under the same circumstances. And it's in Bouldieu is like, and I would do the same as you under the same circumstances. And they have this relationship of they both understand everything about each other, and they have the scene where they're both walking in the down the hall, and they have their cigarettes in the same arm, and they're walking in step the exact same way, and the only difference is the uniform.
Yeah, the
And
uniform and the language.
and that's something interesting that comes up is language in the movie, because
It was freaking me out anytime they spoke in English because I was like, hey, I'm finally understanding. And it's like, oh, that's right. You don't speak neither French nor German, so you're not going to be picking up the language just like that.
it's not that easy.
Not that easy, but it would throw me.
But that's an interesting thing because Bouldieu and Rothstein, they talk to each other in English when they don't want other people to like eavesdrop in the conversation. But they also do that because at the time, if you were part of the aristocracy of the European royalty, English was like the dialogue language. It was like the thing where it's like, oh well, you were a duchess and he's a duke, and you're from Spain and he's from Austria. Well, you both learned English so you can converse with each other.
Yeah.
That was like a diplomatic language. So that's another like level to it where it's like Marcel, he only speaks French.
Yeah.
He has no idea what the fuck any of them are saying. And then you have is it Rothschild?
The one that escapes with him?
Yes.
Rosenthal, yeah.
Rosenthal speaks like French and German, but he's also like that middle between Marcel and Bouldieu, where Marcel is like working class, came from nothing. Bouldieu is like, I'm an aristocrat, and Rosenthal is like, I am a upper middle class like Jewish banker. Like my family kind of came from nothing, but I am now very wealthy.
Yeah.
And it's like there's a whole thing where there's this divide of class structure within the prison camp.
I even think, was it one of the German soldiers where he's like getting everybody in line, or it might have been one of the Frenchmen, and he goes, I was a schoolmaster. He's like, I'm used to kind of dealing with children and getting children to behave, and it was kind of like pulling all these different things and seeing these aren't just soldiers, these are actual people.
Yes, exactly. That's when they first get into the prison camp.
Yeah. And it's just so interesting to see, how they're pulling from their real lives, even though they're at war, and, we must march on and soldier on. And it's like, yeah, but I'm going to pull from my real life to kind of help me survive this.
I mean, I call him the French Charlie Chaplin. He's in Rules of the Game, and he is the biggest ham comedic element of the movie.
As soon as I saw him, I was like, oh my God, that's the guy that steals the other guy's woman.
Yes.
And then the guy that got his woman stolen is in this movie.
Yes, it is. It's really funny. I forget the actor's name and I forget the character's name.
in this movie, his name is Cartier.
Cartier. He's an actor outside of this, and his whole thing, he's putting on shows, and he's a big ham and a big jokester, and he's just this spark of comedy and livelihood in this setting.
I mean, even when he has that dramatic moment where he passes out when he's digging the tunnel because there's no oxygen down there, and it's like, oh my god, I was like, I love him from Rules of the Game. Please don't die this early in the movie. And they pull him out and give him the cognac. Give him the cognac.
We need to rouse him. And he takes a sip and he's like, oh, give me that shit, dog. Come on. I get free cognac?
And it's like, I almost just died, but it's okay. Like, we got the drink. We're good.
Oh, and they do the whole like vaudeville drag show and all that. But it is so interesting how they're building what is going to become the trope of prison movies.
Yeah.
You know, all these guys, they're inside, and then you have, it's like, well, that guy's the funny guy. Well, that guy's the too smart for his own good guy. That's the tough guy over there. That's the guy who's playing in the escape.
Well, I mean, you know, you also see the inspirations for future films in this movie, like when we're having the vaudeville scene, and news breaks out that the French took back the
fort.
The fort, yeah.
It has a weird French name.
Yeah, I was trying to remember the name of the fort, and I couldn't. And I'm not going to butcher the name either. And they break out into Le Marseille. And I was like, oh my god, this is probably where Casablanca was inspired to do this.
Michael Curtiz, 100,000% crib notes from this movie.
Yeah, I was just like, wow.
Another movie that probably crib notes from this, even though I think it's based on a true story, The Great Escape.
Yeah.
100% they crib notes from this movie. The tunnel, how it's shot is like a parallel. This feels like the movie that all these prison escape, all these like war movies, anti-war, pro-war, however you want to describe it, war movies are cribbing notes from this all after World War II. After World War II, they're all like, what's the best war movie we can kind of look for inspiration? And this is it, because it does so much. The only thing we don't have in here is a battle scene.
No.
This is definitely in the prison escape genre more than it is in the action-packed war film.
Yeah, I mean, there's no flashbacks. There's no actual war scenes in this movie. It's all what's going on in the camp. Well, camps, because we do move twice.
Yes.
And then what happens in society when they do escape and they're trying to make it to Switzerland.
And I can't wait to talk about that, because that's when this turns into a different like short film.
Oh my god, I was so thrown because I'd forgotten
that
about
Whiplash.
I'd forgotten about them. I was like, oh yeah, they escaped, and I thought, you know, that was just going to be how it is, you know.
Waiting for the credits to start rolling.
Yeah, I assumed, okay, we can probably interpret it. They made it. There's never word that, you know, we captured them. But no, yeah, the movie completely takes a 180.
And okay. You know, we'll talk about that. We're jumping around anyway.
Right.
The movie is an escape movie, right? They're planning how to get an escape, and then they're like, oh, we can't escape, so we go to the fortress, and then they're like, Boeldieu is like, well, I can sacrifice myself and let you two escape, Rosenthal and Marcel, because you're my best buddies, and I'm going to get out of here. And once they get out, they're escaping through Austria or Germany to get to Switzerland, right?
Yeah.
And on the way, Rosenthal like breaks his foot or something like that.
I think he sprains his foot. It's supposed to come across that he's kind of like a klutz. And it's like, oh, you know, I slipped and I fell. I'm okay. And then it just progressively gets worse.
Until he cannot go on.
And I love when they blow up at each other, because it's just, they're hungry, they're tired, they're scared, they're frustrated, and they're cold.
Yes. And the language they use to each other is perfect, because it brings into another thing about the movie. Because Rosenthal, he calls Marcel a like, get out of here, you cheap dog, or something like that. Like, you big buffoon, right?
Yeah.
And Marcel comes back with him like, get out of here, you stinking Jew.
Yeah.
And it's that thing where it's like, you guys have just suffered together in this POW camp. You guys have now traveled probably like 100 miles together, and there's still that underlying division between you of like, oh, you're attacking his status, you know, he's poor and undereducated, and you're attacking him on his religion and his race. And it's like, the movie is making points of that, because earlier in the movie, it's like the only black officer in the film. He tries to show them like, hey, I did this, what do you think? And they're like, oh, that's nice or whatever, and just completely blow him off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, that's another level of talking about race in the movie,
Yeah.
which is so fascinating because it's already talking about 15 other things, right?
Yeah, I mean, this movie is just so jam-packed with things to focus on that you really have to pay attention to every small detail because it's like, wow, they're really trying to tackle everything that's going on in society right now.
And talking about going on in society, they manage to escape and they get to this barn, and that's where they meet Elsa. And
Lolita.
Lolita?
Yeah. That's the...
Stanley Kubrick's Lolita?
I don't think... Oh, no, it's Lottie, sorry.
Lottie, okay. Lottie. Man, that would be a very different movie. They show up and they find Lolita there.
I thought I heard them say Lolita, but yeah, it's saying Lottie right here.
Okay, so but that's where they meet them, and they form this like functional family unit.
Yeah, it turns into a real kinship between the four of them.
Yeah, and her husband, she's like, my husband died in the war, so I'm alone here, and she doesn't turn them into the German officers or any of them. Why do you think that is? Why do you think she shows them this mercy?
Well, she shows them the pictures of her husband, and then I was trying to... Was it her brothers or was it his brothers in that photo with him?
I feel it's her brothers. I think the implication is that her brothers and her husband have all died in the war. I think that's the implication we're supposed to take.
So I think it's just this thing where it's, she's lost everything and she's... I think not, I only support the German side. It's kind of, I am so tired of this war. I don't care, why they're fighting.
They've taken everything from me.
They've taken everything from me. I just want some normalcy. I want, I want my family back. And I think that's what she gets from them, where it's kind of like, you guys are could be my surrogate family because you were also trying to escape this war.
Oh, that's very interesting. Like she sees them as in the same boat as her. Mm-hmm. I mean, because it is a very okay, it's a very pretty and like very interesting part of the movie, but it also comes out of fucking nowhere. We turned into a domestic drama for like the last 30 minutes, 20 minutes.
Just completely wipes you out. We're like, what? Now we're, in the countryside and we're happy and there's a romance. Like, okay, I'll take it.
I mean, it kind of starts to make sense as it goes along because they show up. Marcel can't speak German. She can't speak French. So Rosenthal has to translate for them. And then as he starts to kind of fall into this father-husband relationship, Rosenthal falls into this like uncle kindness relationship, and he learns a little bit of German. She learns a little bit of French, and they go from being, I mean, they were relatively attractive to each other, but they had no way to express anything to each other. They were still apart. But once they started learning the language, it becomes apparent what Renoir is saying is the only thing that divides us
is language.
Yeah, once we can understand each other, then we can work it out.
And that's why I love one of the lines in the movie is by Marcel when he's talking to Rosenthal. And he goes, look, in the camps, I couldn't understand anything that the officers were, yelling at me. But her, when she speaks German, I understand her German.
My boy Marcel is... he's played the field a few times.
And then she understands his French. And it's just, this connection where it's just, kind of this thing where she had been married, she had a family, and it's kind of like, he was my first love or whatever, and this could be, my last love.
And it becomes this beautiful and sad moment when, because, they have the whole family dynamic. They do Christmas together, he's taking care of the kids, all this other stuff. When they're like, we got to move on, dude. Mm-hmm. Like, we've
overstayed.
We've overstayed. At any point, another German patrol can come in and come looking for us. We got to, like, get to Switzerland because that's neutral territory. Yeah. At least from there, we know the Germans aren't coming after us. At least from there, we might be able to, like, reconnect with the French army and get back to the war and try and get this over with. And he tells her, like, when the war's over, I'll come back for you. Mm-hmm. And you see it in her eyes that she's like, sure you will.
Yeah, because it's this thing of, that's probably what her husband promised her. When this is over, I'll be back home. Same with her brothers. I'll be back home. But, again, it could also be, well, once you get back to France, why do you need to come back for me? Why do you need to come back for my child? It's like, you could start a brand new life. You don't need me.
You're like, I will just be a fleeting wartime memory.
Yeah. This woman that, granted me kindness, fed me so that I wouldn't die. Ah, the good old days.
Ah, the good old. I mean, that's the really like sad interpretation because there's the romantic in us all that's like, oh yeah, after the wars ended, yeah, he went back and they made like 15 more kids and they lived happily ever after until he died of old age in his 90s, right? That's the romantic in us.
He was like, you know what, we don't need to live in France. We could live here in Germany and we'll tend to the farm and it'll just be a happy ending on the pastures.
And the movie doesn't give us a definitive ending. What the ending of the movie gives us is they finally like cross that bridge into not bridge, but open field of snow.
Yes.
Into Switzerland as the German patrol is like right on their tails and they're about to like shoot them dead. And he's like, wait. They cross the border, guys. They beat us fairsies and squaresies.
Mm-hmm.
And then it shows like what it is, and it's the same open wilderness that we've seen before, and it's Renoir saying again that, guys, borders, nations, it's all an illusion. It's all bullshit we make up. Like, we're all humanity. Like, what? Borders are just things we just kind of said existed, and then we just kind of live by it. And that is the ending that's in the movie of them crossing Switzerland. Mm-hmm. But there was an alternate ending to the movie.
Really?
Yeah, this was, I believe it's in the original script, and I don't believe it was shot. But what it originally was that Rosenthal and Marcel, when they were crossing over, they were supposed to promise each other, hey, when this war's over, meet me at that cafe in Paris. Mm-hmm. And then it was going to cut to the armistice. The war's over. Oh, we've did it. And it was going to pan over to 2 empty chairs at a cafe. And then that gets into a very, very depressing, like...
Yeah. They didn't make it.
Yeah, but then he was like, nah, we don't need that in the movie. So then we get this ending, which is a lot more open, and you can have that happy idea.
Yeah, you can make up the story for yourself, They made it, they were able to get back to France and, rejoin the army, go save their people that were, in these camps.
And you generally hate open endings like this.
I do, but I knew with a movie of this, this territory, I'm like, I'm not going to get
get an ending where it flash forwards and Marcel is like 95, got 90 grandkids, Rosenthal comes in the walker.
Yeah, I knew that wasn't going to happen in this movie. Because, I mean, they don't even know about, what is it, their captain?
Oh, yeah, Boeldieu, because he gets... okay, do you want to talk about that one?
We have to, because that kind of ties in to this ending, because Rosenthal mentions him, and he's like, hey, I wonder if he's okay. Marcel is like, I'm not even going to think about it. He's like, we can't, we can't go back.
Yeah.
Because, that is possible that he is dead, that he was killed or murdered for helping them escape.
And that whole moment, and we really got to hammer down that Rauffenstien and Boeldieu, they are like really close. Like, they have, like, this weird bond that even Boeldieu and the other Frenchmen don't have.
Yeah.
Because they really view each other as total equals. Mm-hmm. Like, you and me are the only 2 people in this war that are on the exact same level.
Yeah, I mean, we see it with Boeldieu, where he doesn't understand why his bunk isn't searched. When they go through their quarters and they're looking for anything. And he asks him a couple of times, well, why isn't my stuff searched? I'm equal to my men. And you have Stroheim, where he's just like, no, you're not.
He goes up and asks him, it's like, just tell me there's nothing in there. And he's like, there's not. And he's like, well, your word means more than Rosenthal and means more than Melchior. And that's something that's another level of talking about that. Because he holds on Rosenthal for a minute.
Yeah.
And that's like Renoir commenting, it's like, hey, there's some underlying anti-Semitism in this German army occupation and whatnot. That, again, comes up a little later. That's this underlying thing in, like, society.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's very interesting. But in the context of that, it's Rauffenstien and Boeldieu looking at each other and being like, we are like two sides of the same coin, my
Mhm.
brother. Like, we are here and we working this shit out. And when Rauffenstien has to kill Boeldieu when he's escaping, that's so depressing. That's so
Yeah.
sad.
And I mean, I love that, Bouldieu for that scene just goes completely nuts. He's out there with his flute. He's, because for most of the movie, he's being very stoic, very aloof.
Very aristocratic.
Yeah. And, it's everyone else that's kind of being, comedic and cartoony. But it's him that's just, there, shining his monocle, ho ho, you boys, And then in this moment, we've got him playing the flute, being Peter Pan. Here he is sitting over here, and he's going across the rocks,
and the reason he's doing this is to give Rosenthal and Marcel as much time as possible to escape.
Yeah, and it's I keep on calling him Stroheim, but Rauffenstien, where he's just kind of like, "What are you doing? You need to get down. You need to stop this, or I will have to shoot you." And then he finally realizes why he's doing it. He's doing it to protect his men and to help his men.
And that's like, he respects him even more.
And the two men know he has to shoot.
And that's one of those things where it's like, at the end, Boeldieu, he's like lying there and they're like, you shot him through the stomach. He's like, he's dead. Like, he's dying right now. And Rauffenstien is like,
I aimed for your leg.
I didn't mean to do this. And Boeldieu is like, it was dark. I was running.
Yeah, the first thing he was like, it's the visibility. He goes, it was really bad that night. And it's not even like a, dude, why didn't you aim better for my leg? It's just, he's like, I understand.
It's one of those things where they, like, when, I know we memed at the beginning where it's like, oh, the romance of this movie. But this is like the romance where it's like, they legitimately are like, it's not like, I guess it's not like a sexual love. Like, I don't get that vibe, but it is like a deep, like, bro, we are in this together. We're on opposite sides, but as well as I do that we are in this shit together. And that's another thing about this movie that's fascinating.
Yeah, because I mean, you have this deep conversation, this last conversation that these two men are having. And he goes, Boeldieu, he goes, I'm doing the easy part. I'm dying. I'm getting out of here. He goes, you have to live the rest of your life, still fighting this fight. You now have my blood on your hands. You have so many, other people's blood on your hands. You've survived all these things and you're still going. I feel sorry for you.
That's one of the saddest. That's one of the hardest shit in cinema 101 right here. When you tell the guy, it's like, bro, I'm dying, but I still won this fight. That's
I won this fight and I feel bad for you because you keep losing. And you don't just see, but you hear from Rauffenstien, whereas he's like, I've got a metal plate in my head, my spine, I've been shot through the leg, I've been, my hands are burned, my body's burned. Very early Darth Vader.
Very. He even has the neck brace.
The neck brace. And it's like, you see all these things that he survived. And he's just like, the greatest thing or the easiest thing to do in war is to die instead of survive it and have to live with the aftermath. And he's like, I can't.
And Rauffenstien is even bitter about the fact he survived this long because he's like, he's like, I broke my body serving my country. I should have died, but I didn't. And now they have posted me here and I'm a glorified secretary.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I should have died in honors and be buried with my forefathers as a war hero.
His men.
With his men. And now he's going to die a broken old man in a wheelchair because of this. And that final conversation when Boeldieu finally dies and he goes over to the
flower. Oh my god, his plant. Yeah.
His plant. And they're like, this is the only flower that grows here. It's like, we can grow needles, we can grow vines, but we cannot grow flowers. The only flowers.
And it's the German soldiers, this crazy old man. All he cares about is, his one plant that he has. And then he goes and he cuts the flower off the plant to give it to Boeldieu.
Okay. Do you think he goes and puts it on Boeldieu as like a whole like, farewell, my friend? Or do you think he cuts it off because he's like, there is no hope anymore? And like,
I think it could be a double meaning. I think, his relationship with Boeldieu was the only beautiful thing in that place. Because you have the other soldier that's with them when they're getting the tour of the castle.
mm-hmm.
And he's like, wow, this is 12th century. This is 13th century. And Marcel's like, I don't care,
Okay, I wanted to point this. I think I picked something up. When he's saying, oh, this is 12th, 13th, 14th century, I don't think he's actually saying, oh, the building is this. I think what he's saying is like, hey, I've seen 12th century patrols. When he's commenting on the building, I think that's a coded thing.
Oh, it could be.
And I just wanted to point that out because I'm like, I love that secret spy shit in movies.
Oh, it could have been. I just picked it up that, he was appreciating the architecture. Like we have the other Frenchman that loves the books.
Mm.
So it's like, I thought, we're finally starting to see more of the personalities of these men. So we don't just view them as soldiers.
They're not cannon fodder.
No, it's like, no, these are actual people. But yeah, I feel like with the flower, I felt like, that could be a thing where, I'm giving something that I found beautiful to my friend that is now gone. But that could also be what you thought too with,
the one beautiful thing in this place is dead.
It's dead. It's ruined. And then you have the snow falling down outside, and it's just like, bruh, that is...
This is why...
This is like Batman, the animated series, the Mr. Freeze one.
I'm calling it
like,
Mr. Freeze. They crib notes from this. They crib notes from Grand Illusion.
Edward Scissorhands, ice dance scene.
Of course. That's the thing. Renoir is an absolute fucking master here because there's no dialogue for that. It's him just going over, cutting it. It's quiet, the snow falling. He uses such an active camera in this.
I mean, even when Stroheim has to go over and close his eyes for him.
Oh.
Because, I mean, they're having this conversation, and the nurse is like, you need to stop. You need to save your energy. And then it's like a minute later, and he's just gone. It's like he needed to tell him everything.
And we've seen the whole, like, close the guy's eyes a million times in a million movies. And
but
this
Stroheim
one is like,
has so much, you could just see the heartbreak in his face when he's closing his eyes.
And he has such gravitas as an actor and as, like, a screen presence, which is weird. Because if you saw Erich von Stroheim at a coffee shop, you would think, man, that is a really sad-looking old man. But when he's in this in the uniform and he's like working it, he is so captivating.
But he looks very short.
Yes.
But he's this presence when he's over him, and you can only imagine how many times in war he's had to do that to his men, close their eyes and that's it. That's it for you. I'm closing the book on you and I'm soldiering on.
And you want to know the wildest thing about this?
What?
Rauffenstien, Erich von Stroheim, he was supposed to be a cameo. He was only supposed to be in the first scene.
Yeah, I can't see this movie with just, one little snippet of him.
So, here's what it was. They got Erich von Stroheim for the role, and Jean Renoir is like, bro, I got the fucking man in my movie. Because he is a huge fan, because Erich von Stroheim in the silent era was considered, like, the guy.
Yeah.
Like, he made Greed, which is, I think even now considered one of the greatest movies ever made. And at the time, it was like, bro, this guy's on another fucking level. Like, to put it in context, it's like, it's like when, if Christopher Nolan got a chance to get Stanley Kubrick as a cameo in Memento, like that would be that kind of shit. Like he was that level of fucking hyped about this shit. So he gets Erich von Stroheim in, and Erich von Stroheim's like, so what is my character? And Jean Renoir tells him, he's like, give me a minute. And then he builds the entire Rauffenstien's character out of their conversation and gets the whole, well, he's going to have this back brace. This is what's going to happen to him after this event. Like, this is the whole relationship. Lays out the entire thing. And Renoir's like, all right, I guess you're in the whole fucking movie now. And apparently, like, Erich von Stroheim was a total dick to Renoir the entire shoot. Because it's like, I
mean, it's two directors working together. Yeah.
That was the entire conflict, was like, you're really going to frame me like that? I don't think that's the right way to do it. I don't think you really have, like, a good grasp on the camera, little Jean Renoir. And like Jean Renoir like cried for 3 days, like at the beginning of the shoot. But yeah, von Stroheim is kino in this fucking movie.
Yes,
You
he
can
is.
watch the movie just for him.
Oh yeah. Because I mean, you're so used to, I mean, like you were saying earlier, we have so many prison break movies, we have so many war movies. You're used to the hard ass captain that is gonna, grind you into the floor, but because of that, that makes you a stronger soldier. But he has so much empathy, and he has a heart, and it's just like
It's all that humanity that's built into him.
and that's what's so surprising. You'd think, he'd be this asshole, and it's just like, no, war has broken my body. It's kind of broken my spirit a little bit, and
But it has not broken my heart.
it hasn't broken my heart.
Okay, this is a question that I get when I watch this movie. Is he a villain? Like, he's an antagonist. He's stopping them from escaping. And like obviously he's, in charge of the camp, right? But is he like a villain? Is he actively evil?
No. I mean, he treats them very, he's very appropriate. You never see, like, I think there's only one time we see someone that escaped that has been killed, and that was in the previous camp.
Yes, where he was not involved.
Where he wasn't involved. But I mean, when we first meet him, he greets them and, invites them to dinner, and it's just, he's maintained this professionalism where it's like, okay, you are technically under our surrender, but I'm going to treat you like a human being. It's never this thing where we see people being tortured or abused. It's very weird.
Even the one time we see like the worst thing that happens in the movie, other than the prisoners being shot for escaping, but like the actual like punishment inside is when they put Marcel in solitary.
Solitary, yeah.
And he's in there, and it's
He
not
breaks.
He does. He has like a full-on breakdown, and he's like, I just want to talk to somebody. I want to talk to somebody in French. I want to hear my language. I want to just be around people. I want to
feel. I want to feel the sun on my face.
Yes, and the German officer or the German guard, right, is like, look, buddy, I'm sorry. Like, do you want something? Like, he tries to give him cigarettes and chocolate, but they have a language barrier. They can't.
Yeah.
He doesn't, like, Marcel doesn't understand what the fuck the guy's trying to do. And then he, like, leaves him a harmonica, and, like, the guard leaves and closes the door. And then we see the guard kind of, like, waiting outside, and then we hear the harmonica playing, and it's like, there is a huge amount of, like, empathy and kindness within these guys.
And then the guard walks away, and it's not like he knows the words to the song, so he's just kind of like, going with the melody that Marcel is playing. And it's like, again, even though we have this language barrier, I can still connect to you on a deeper level.
And that's like the thing about the movie is this grand illusion that, the movie's named after. It's like, bro, the only difference between us is like the uniform at this point. Like, look, if you were in charge of the prison camp, you treat me the same way. Like, as long, like, we're both like decent human beings. We're on the opposite sides of the fence on this one.
Yeah.
And it's like that's such a interesting way to look at it, because usually when you're seeing these like war movies, or you're seeing these like movies like this where it's like, oh, these like, we are both of like the same mind, but you're the evil side and I'm the good side.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're both like aristocrats, but you're an evil racist monster and I am the smart intellectual, captain of my brigade, so we're going to rebel against you.
In this movie, it's just everyone's fed up.
Yeah.
It's like, I am, clocking in at work, and I'm making sure that, you guys remain in the camp, but it's like, I really don't want to, have you guys here.
And that was the whole thing with World War I, because legitimately people were like, quick war, 6 months, year, we're going to be out. And it drags on and drags on. And Germany is devastated by the war.
Yeah.
I mean, they make the comment in the movie when like the new German soldiers come in and like the old ladies outside, it's like, oh, those poor boys. And you see the soldiers that they've recruited and they're like 15.
Yeah, they're young men.
And that's like the true reality was, once the soldiers started dying, then they started getting like younger and younger and younger. There's a whole thing in All Quiet on the Western Front, which is based on a book that's based on the author's like real life experiences, where school teachers would start telling teenage boys that, you know what you should do? You should drop out. Maybe enlist in the army. Go serve your country. Like school teachers, like imagine you're a junior or a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
And your history teacher is like, you know, I'm teaching you about things written in books, but you could be somebody written in this book if you drop out right now and go join up, get in the Marine Corps, son. That was the level of the society they were living in like World War I Germany. And it's like, this movie is kind of commenting on that. Like the patrol that is chasing after them when they escape. You see the kid when he's talking to Elsa, and he's what, like 14?
Oh, very, very fresh baby face. And he goes, if I could, I'd rather stay here with you, but I've got to go on patrol.
And it's like mom's calling him to get home for dinner. And it's, God, I love this movie. This is a good movie.
Yeah, because you feel the initial terror when you hear them marching and then the banging on the door. And you're like, oh my God, they're going to take them and they're going to take Elsa and the little girl because, they're harboring prisoners of war. Mm-hmm. And it's just, you see this baby-faced looking kid where he's kind of like, I'd rather stay here with you, but okay, I guess I'll go back to the march. And it's just like...
And that parallel between the patrol and Marcel and Rosenthal is... Marcel and Rosenthal, they're men. Yeah. They're like I say that, it's like, well, yeah, they're, no, they're like grown-ass men. They're like in their 30s. And they're being chased down by like 14-year-old boys with guns. And it's like, you are terrified that a 14-year-old boy is going to catch up with all his friends and kill you. And it's... God, this movie is one of those things where it is talking about a lot of things. It's also talking, about the reality or like the sad state of World War I, but it's also kind of commenting on this pre-World War II Europe. Mm-hmm. Because, made in 1937, Hitler invades Poland in 1939, I believe. And so
I'm not good with dates.
Yeah, I'm going off the top of my head here. People think I do research. A lot of this is riffing, but I'm pretty sure it's 39. And I think the ending of the movie is making a very subtle but very clear point is, hey guys, something's gonna happen. Maybe you should run off to a neutral country. And especially if you are of Jewish descent, because they make the point that Rosenthal is the one that... Rosenthal and Marcel, they both escaped to Switzerland. Mm-hmm. And Renoir is making comment that, there's this little underlying anti-Semitism within the German military here, and there's this thing about like race and class and structure and all these things, and the movie ends with them escaping into a neutral country. Yeah. I think he's saying, hey guys, things are gonna get bad. You might want to, if you don't want to be involved, you might want to leave. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, do you think that's a real forward thought he had, or is that me just kind of looking back and saying, man, hindsight's 2020 on that one?
I think it could be a hindsight's 2020 on that one.
You think so? Because I feel it's intentional, because it feels like there's a lot going on around that time where you could definitely make a comment that like, guys, I don't think things are looking too hot right now.
Yeah, but I mean, this movie was also what, 37?
Yeah, 37.
So it's like, we really haven't, gotten into some of the heavy things of history that we were about to discover. So it could have been a thing where, things are bad right now, but I'm sure, just like with this movie, I'm sure this will end in like 6 months.
Oh,
and
Lord.
It's this thing where, that he probably thought, okay, this is the worst it's going to get. We just need to push over that hill and it's going to, resolve itself.
And 2 years later, it ain't resolving itself at all.
No, it's only gotten worse. And I mean, this is very relevant to, this movie because they actually couldn't film the movie in Germany because, that was occupied Nazi Germany at the time. And
this movie, when it premiered, Goebbels, the administrator of propaganda, he called this the cinematic enemy #1.
Ah.
like him, Hitler, all those guys were like, we need to destroy this movie. What is it? Benito Mussolini, because this was shown at the Venice Film Festival, and it was like the front runner to win. And they were like, this is going to win. It's going to be this huge international success. And Benito Mussolini personally said, it will not win the grand prize. And they're like, why do you have that feeling? Because I fucking said so, it won't win the grand prize. So they gave it a special award. They made up an award to give it. Yeah. That was basically like, yeah, best ensemble cast. But like, really, guys, you guys fucking won. But Benito will kill us all if we give it to you.
This was the first foreign film movie to be nominated for an Academy Award.
Yeah, well-deserved.
Very well-deserved. And I think, this is a commentary on these dictators that try to, enforce and scare people. They're scared, pieces of crap. They're trying to destroy this movie because this movie is actually showing the human spirit, the human condition, where
there's an inherent humanity within us all that if we just look past certain differences, we can get along.
Yeah, and that's, very present in this movie where it's like, we don't have to agree on each other's politics, but we can treat each other, like human beings. We can be polite to each other. We could be cordial with each other. And that's why they wanted it destroyed, because they want to keep people in the dark, keep people scared, keep people, you need to support me. I will be your mouthpiece. Don't even question anything I have to say. And it's like, no, you are a person. You have your own voice, your own brain. You can think for yourself.
And the whole thing is the movie's talking, this illusion, this grand illusion. And the whole thing where it's like countries and borders and this and that. It's all shit we made up. It's all shit people above us are making up, so we fight about it. Because it's like Rauffenstien and Boeldieu, like they're like, aristocracy, high ranking, whatever. But they're not fucking generals. They didn't start the war. They're soldiers serving in it. And it's like these guys are like rich, whatever. But like there's people above them that we never see or hear about that are just like, the war's still going, guys. And it's like, well, why the fuck's the war still going?
And even both sides, when they have, like the propaganda to say, what's going on, and we've overtaken this fort, or we've done this. Both sides say it's full of crap. Anytime they print up these things to kind of like hype up the teams, it's like they're full of shit. They're just, amplifying what really happened to make us feel like something is actually happening.
And the other thing is, it's World War I, which I think is ubiquitously called like the most pointless war of the 20th century. And it's like, yeah, I could 100% see Renoir, the writers, the actors being like, what's the movie about? Of how fucking pointless all of this bullshit is.
How it's taking us away from our lives.
All our lives and humanity. And but yeah, this movie is, it is a miracle it survived post World War II, because during it, like, when I said like this was Nazi Germany's like cinematic enemy number one, I fucking meant it. They gathered up as many copies as they could. They burned it. The original negatives were bombed.
The books.
Oh yeah, the books it was based on were all burned. The movie only survives, I believe, because there was one or two like first or second generation duplicates that were found at some university in Stockholm. I believe. I might be getting details wrong, but it's like that. Like there was like 2 negatives that survived, and they were released in like 58. Because before that, a bunch of it got cut to pieces. Like this movie is 114 minutes, and the one that was okay to show in occupied countries was like 82 minutes or 90 minutes, like really short. They took out all like the meat of the movie. Yeah. But I'm so glad it survived. Such a good fucking movie.
Same.
It's one of those things where this movie, the movie's just wonderful, honestly. But
I'd like to read the book.
I mean, I know it's like quote unquote based on a book, but a lot of what's going on in the movie is tied into Renoir's experiences and the experiences of people he talked to, because a lot of the a lot of the people he talked to were like World War One vets and who were officers in POW camps.
And he also served in the First World War.
Yeah, so it's a thing where a lot of the stuff that's in the movie is a lot of anecdotal stories of real things that happened to people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be I'd be interested to see how different the book is from the movie, because
Yeah.
apparently the script is also like wildly different than what's on screen. Because in the script, you know, Rauffenstien's supposed to be out of the movie in the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. But we did talk about this movie was, you know, nominated for the first Best Picture, things like that. You know what else it was brought up for in the lofty esteems of, you know, cinema history? It was in Orson Welles' Ark films. I know it sounds epic. Now, it comes from this thing where everyone's like, this movie is so good, it's the only movie Orson Welles would have picked to go on to like his arc. You know, if you can only save one movie, what movie would it be? And Orson Welles was put on the spot and said, well, do The Grand Illusion, obviously. You know, it's the movie about everything. And it's just one of those things where it's a movie that has always been in high esteem since it got re-released in like the 50s, because it's number 5 on the Brussels like list of the best movies at its World Expo in 58. In 1995 it's inducted into the Vatican Film Archives as like, hey, this is one of 45 films we think is quintessential for art. And it's a movie that is continually brought up as, no, this is a masterpiece. Everyone who's seen it basically agrees, but it's weird that it's not really talked about anymore. And I'm curious, you wonder why that is?
I think because we have so many war films that it's just kind of like, you know, we're moving with the times, you know, Saving Private Ryan,
Dunkirk,
Band of Brothers, you know, it's like we're sticking to these new masterpieces, and it's like we gotta go back to some of the originals, the ones that started this trend.
And there's also the other thing where this is a World War One war film, and let's be honest, World War II made a lot of cinematic masterpieces.
Oh yeah.
All right, like I'm not saying World War II was good or nothing, but I mean, like, hey, there's some good ass movies came out of World War II. Yeah,
and I think, you know, because there was so much coverage of World War II that it was kind of like we could turn this into a film.
There's another thing. There's a lot of documentary footage of World War II, and there's a lot of things that there was just more people around for creative stuff post World War II than post World War One.
Yeah.
And it is one of those things though where I'm like, why is it that we don't talk about this more often? Why is Rules of the Game higher on, you know, why is Rules of the Game on the Sight and Sound Top 100 and this is not?
Really?
It's one of the surprising things, right? This was on the list at one point, but it was like really low. But Rules of the Game is everyone's like, no, that's Renoir's true masterpiece. Let's get Grand Illusion off of here. It's taking the spotlight.
I mean, I feel biased because I really loved Rules of the Game. We got to see that on the big screen for the first time, and I was like, okay, you know, this is hilarious, while dealing with, you know, some
pretty glaring social like double standards and this whole like romance thing, and Renoir brings up a lot of the things in the same movies, right?
Yeah, so, you know, I could see where maybe more people were kind of like, there's some darker tones in Rules of the Game, but I could kind of vibe with that. Because, you know, these people are free to go about their business versus these men that are stuck in this camp trying to escape. You know, every day it's like, all right, we're going to be able to get out of here in like 2 weeks. Okay, another 2 weeks. And it's just, you know, this kind of tension and suspension of, you know, will they be able to get out?
It's one of those things where I get what you're coming from, because Rules of the Game is a movie that gets very dark at the end of it.
Yeah.
Whereas Grand Illusion is very like heavy and heady for a lot of it. We don't get a lighthearted like we have some lighthearted stuff it's
sprinkled in there.
But it's very much like, we're in a prison camp, boys. Yeah, they're treating us nice, but we're not getting out of here.
No.
I can kind of see that. Like, Rules of the Game is an easy vibe. This one, I mean, I even admit it took me like 3 tries to really like get the movie, but man, it was worth those 3 tries. This is a good movie.
I'm surprised that I got it like right off the bat.
You had a lot more, podcasting experience at the time,
I suppose, but I mean, you're also like that with TV shows. You're like, oh, it won't get better till like the 3rd episode, and there's somewhere it's like, no, I really enjoyed the pilot.
Well, the thing is like, won't get better till the 3rd episode. I do that because I was a Lost fan, so I was on that train where I'm like, guys, it was great from episode 1. Man, this is just getting better and better. Wait, what's going? Why are we doing? They were dead the whole time? Yeah, so I have a lot of reservations about TV shows now.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing with TV shows. Sometimes they're able to pull it off, and there's some where you could see when it starts to go off the rails, and it's just like, why? Why are we doing this?
Which writers like fucked off? Which ones started coke? What's going on?
What studio? When was this? When the studio decided, no, we're gonna take the reins and we want to do this, and it's just like,
was this where the writers found out he can't answer the question he posed in the first season, so he's just gonna fucking wing it for the rest of the series? That is the fate of too many TV shows that I fall in love with. There was one From that's on right now.
Oh yeah, I remember you recommended that to me.
Yeah, the first season is like really solid, and then the second season it has the Lost problem where I'm like, you don't know the answer to the questions you're asking, do you? You're gonna string me along for another 3 seasons and then bullshit answer your way out of this. Oh, fuck you, movie, or fuck you, show. But
with this movie, we don't have that problem.
Honestly, I'd prefer this to be a TV show. Honestly, I would really. Okay, that's Hogan's Heroes, but whatever. But I would really like to see if this movie ever got like remade, right?
Which it shouldn't.
I know it shouldn't, but like maybe not like remade, but like heavily inspired production. I would like this to be a like 10 episode miniseries because I feel there's so much to be explored here that.
Or we just need more stuff about the First World War.
I mean, the First World War is a very interesting cinematic object.
I mean, apart from this movie, Gods and Monsters, they talk a little bit about the First World War because James Whale was an officer.
Well, I mean, recently we have like 1917. That's a World War I movie. All Quiet on the Western Front's a World War I movie. There's the World War I is becoming more of a. I think Hollywood's figured out that it's like, hey guys, I think we should stop doing World War II movies where we have to actually deal with Nazis right now. Let's do some World War I movies. Make it easy.
Well, that, and you also have movies that were made during the Second World War about the war.
Yeah.
And it's like, why am I going to watch something that was made this year or, the following years when I have something that could be happening during that same time frame?
I mean, there's a lot of great movies about war that are anti-war, and there's just so many great movies out there that are kind of like pulling off of this, but that's neither here nor there. We've been in here for a minute. What are your final thoughts on The Grande Illusion?
I mean, I really enjoyed it. I wasn't sure what I was going to walk into when, I had to watch this movie, but yeah, I really liked it. There was one more thing that I had wanted to make a factoid on. Or not a factoid. I got a factoid.
This is why I asked you. You have any more things to talk about?
Yeah. So I've got my factoid. I'll save that for last. But one of the scenes that I saw and it reminded me of a modern day movie that could have been inspired from this movie is when Marcel and Boeldieu, when they first come to the prison camp and they meet up with the other Frenchmen and they're like, oh, good, you're just in time for dinner. And they're sitting around the table. Reminded me of Goodfellas.
When they're in the jail and they're like, yeah, he would cut it up and we'd be
he's cutting up the garlic and they're having this full-blown dinner. And you hear, I forget which one of the men, it's like, oh yeah, he gets the best care packages.
It's Rosenthal.
Is it Rosenthal?
Because Rosenthal, it's like a thing where he's like very kind and he's like sharing all of his stuff. And it's another thing where it's like, when he gets the when Marcel calls him like, oh, you stinking Jew, and he's like, and I'm in my head I'm like, dude, Rosenthal is like like the true homie of the
Yeah.
movie. Like he's like, I get chocolates, I get wine, I get bread, and it's for the boys. It ain't for you. It ain't
It's
for
like,
Roosevelt.
I
It's for the
fed you.
boys.
You know, it's like you could have been eating cabbage like the rest of the prisoners. And it's like, no, you had fish, you had wine, you had chocolate.
The capacity for great kindness and cold-heartedness
Hmm.
of humanity is fascinating.
Yeah. But yeah, that scene reminded me of Goodfellas. I was like, wow, I wonder if this is what inspired that scene.
I would imagine. Well, okay, I read the book Goodfellas is based on, and it's a thing where it's like, oh no, in real life the mob was just able to do that shit. But I think cinematically, I feel like Scorsese. I know Scorsese's seen this movie, but I feel like there's definitely him cribbing a couple of things
Mhm.
like, okay, how are we gonna portray this? What is the vibe we're going for? And I feel it's a very parallel vibe and tone from that scene to this scene that he's going for.
Yeah, because you know, you in Goodfellas, you have the wife that's, you know, oh my god, you know, he's in prison, and they're sitting down to like Sunday dinner, and that's the vibe that you get in this movie. Because I think you made the perfect comparison that it for them it doesn't feel like a prison, it feels like a dorm,
Yeah.
and that's what you kind of feel like. You know, they're getting in, and you're just in time for dinner. You know, come sit down, and everyone's kind of, you know, they're not happy because of where they are, but they're happy to be together.
It's the thing where it's like, I hate the place I'm in, but I like the people I'm in here with.
I enjoy the company that I have.
Yeah, it's such a it's a very profoundly good movie with so much going on. But what's your factoid? What's your factoid?
My factoid, my boof fact of this episode is that the uniform that Marcel is wearing, beautiful, you know, the black coat and everything,
Mhm.
that's actually Renoir's uniform from when he served in the Air Force.
Oh, really?
So that is a actual, you know, well, I mean, I'm sure all the costuming might be either authentic or some are replicas, but no, that is actually Renoir's uniform from war.
That is super cool. Also, Renoir was a much thinner man back then. If anyone sees a picture of Jean Renoir, he's a very portly gentleman. Him and Orson Welles could have been late stage buddies.
Yeah, I've never seen a picture of Renoir, so I don't know what he looks like.
Oh, in Rules of the Game, he's like, the portly fellow that
Yeah.
comes in. That's Jean Renoir.
Is it?
That's Jean Renoir.
Oh,
yeah.
I had no idea that was
Octave.
him.
Yeah, he's Octave in Rules of the Game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, where he's like, oh, we're here for the wine and the cheese. Yeah, that's Jean Renoir.
Oh, okay. That.
Now you're looking and you're like, how the fuck he fit in that suit?
No, I'm not thinking that, but I'm just thinking like, oh, okay, that's a complete trip because he's in the entire movie.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's why I was just like, okay, you know, an actor, and I was like, oh no, that's Renoir. Okay.
Yeah, a fun fact about Rules of the Game, he basically fell into doing that because I can't remember if it was like he couldn't find anybody for the role or the person for the role bailed and he was like, fuck it, I'll do it myself.
Yeah.
And he just, did the fucking movie.
As you do.
As you do. And but yeah, like that is a really cool fact. I didn't know that was his uniform.
Yeah, I just, it's very striking. I mean, I love costumes, and in old movies, costuming is kino.
Yes.
So that's why when I saw that fact, I was like, wow. I mean, obviously, a lot of those uniforms are probably authentic.
Mm-hmm. It's like the thing in All Quiet on the Western Front where a lot of the extras in that movie were like real World War I vets.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the 1930s one, not like the 2021. Yeah, the original, where
like,
those guys were still fucking alive.
Like you need to clarify that because people are like, really? They're still around?
I think there might be one or two World War I vets hanging. Okay, probably not. Actually, I met one World War I vet in my entire life.
Yeah, I think we're kind of flipping to the Second World War.
Where is like the oldest war people are still kicking around at.
Yeah, they're starting to kind of dwindle. But yeah, and also earlier you had said you didn't know what Bastille Day was.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually it's a French National Day. It's the storming of the Bastille in 1789. So it's one of the major events during the French Revolution that they celebrate. So the more you know.
Happy Bastille Day,
Happy
everyone.
Bastille Day. My great-grandmother was actually born on Bastille Day.
Oh, was she born in Paris?
I don't think she was born in Paris, but that is my French grandmother.
Well, I guess huge fan of Grand Illusion. It's a 5 out of 5 for me. I think it is It's a movie that talks about everything in a very like intelligent, even-handed way. It's a movie that is infinitely watchable. Like you can really pull a lot of different things out of it. It's a movie that has like a very active camera. You really feel like you're in the spaces with everyone. And yeah, I would 100% recommend anybody who has even the mildest interest in war films, in films about society, films like French films, old films, any films. If you have
black and white films,
any interest in this, give it a watch. I swear it's good.
Ditto. Because I need to give this a few more watches. I will watch this more because I really did enjoy it. I was really captivated by the story, captivated by Boeldieu and
Rosenthal.
Not Rosenthal. The
Marcel?
other. No. The other.
Rauffenstien.
Rauffenstien.
Yes.
I was really captivated by their.
Rauffenstein.
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.
But I was really captivated by their relationship with each other. And it's just the whole story. It's just all these men, surviving together and, not being malice. And there's no malice or being harsh to each other. It's just, eventually we're going to get out of this.
It is the grand illusion.
Yes, the grand illusion that someday things will get better.
Oh, that's so sad.
But will get better eventually.
I mean, it got better. But what are we watching next week?
Well, again, this is your month.
I know, but I like asking the question.
I know you like asking the question. It's another movie that I haven't seen. Shocker. This month is movies I've never seen before. And so far, we're doing pretty good. Really enjoyed Caligari. I enjoyed Grand Illusion.
Caligari, we apologize for it being a short episode.
It's a short episode, but I mean, I think we really were stuck on seeing how it inspired so many other people, filmmakers, pop culture. And in this movie, it was the same thing. We see how it inspired future filmmakers, movies.
And also, fucking Renoir's a master here, let's be honest, boys. But we're talking about another master.
Yes, who are we talking about next week?
Next week, we're talking about a film by Akira Kurosawa. Possibly his greatest masterpiece, because he has like 5 of them. And also, it's a movie that I think is considered the greatest foreign film ever made. And if you're wondering what that is, it's Seven Samurai, the 3.5 or 4 hour long samurai epic that has inspired all of action cinema since its release. It stars Toshiro Mifune, who is like honestly like one of the first great action stars of Japanese cinema.
How old is this movie?
1954, 55. It's from the 50s somewhere. I'd have to look at the exact date, but it's from the 50s. And look, I know it's a long movie, but it's good. It's so worth it. Oh, it is so fucking good.
But we'll see next week.
But if they wanted to check in on us, where can they go?
If you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube.
Yes, you can. You can go to our YouTube channel, The Film Vault. That is The Film Vault on YouTube. Eventually, Dean will remember to upload slideshow versions of this podcast so you can listen to it on YouTube. But if you want to follow us on social media, where can you go?
You can go to the Film Club Podcast on Instagram, where we post daily stories, upcoming episodes, and random adventures we go on.
And with that,
we'll see you next week at the Film Club.
Bon voyage, everybody.